Today, I want to talk about living up to your own standards. I sort of came to this realization. Well, not sort of. I came to this realization recently, and that's not even true. I've kind of been feeling this for a long time, but I had this sort of big realization moment a couple nights ago, or couple nights ago. So I'll give some backstory context. Maybe that'll help. So maybe over the last year or so, I've been having trouble sleeping. I can fall asleep really easily, but then it's somewhere between like 2:30 in the morning and 3:30 in the morning. I wake up and then my brain just starts thinking about shit and starts stressing out about shit. And then I find it hard to turn it off. Like I try to meditate and like it doesn't, I don't know. It's weird. It just doesn't stick. It's like my brain just is in I don't know, this like hyper mode where just like thoughts are going one after the other. And so I've been trying to do stuff about it. And for a while I thought it was just because, so last year my dog Herbie was, he's old. So he'd have to get up like several times a night. So I was having to get up and let him out. So I kind of thought that was what was going on. But then he passed away in December. And it's still been happening, every night, every single night, pretty much. There's no night where it doesn't happen. And so I've been trying all this stuff. I was going to acupuncture and trying to do things that are more holistic and not so much going towards pharmaceuticals. Well, not at all. I don't really want to take any kind of sleeping pills or any shit like that because I'm not on any medications and I want to keep it that way for as long as possible. So I was trying some holistic stuff. And so I was doing acupuncture and she suggested a sort of a cocktail of, I guess they're vitamins or mineral or nutrients, some shit. I don't know. You tell me. It was like, L-tryptophan, 5-HTP and, calcium, magnesium. She explained it all to me and I had read about it. It like helps like calm your mind and kind of get you into that sleep state. So I've been taking that and it doesn't seem to really help. I mean, I feel like I sleep better when I'm on that, but it hasn't solved the problem. So I was trying all this stuff and Jessie, my girlfriend, had brought up a few times that she thinks there's like some kind of, I don't know, like a spiritual type of thing. 'Cause they say like the veil between the spirit world and the regular world is thinner around at 3:00 in the morning. So it's kind of interesting because I've heard that a lot and I've read that before. And I listen to like some paranormal podcasts and stuff. And a lot of the experiences they talk about, shit happens at 3 a.m. and 3 a.m. has been something that I've experienced a lot in my life as well. And so I don't know if I believe that's what's going on, but I'm open to that shit because I've experienced a lot of things that I can't really explain outside of like, some spiritual type of shit. Maybe I'll just kind of brush past a few of them. If you're interested in hearing these stories in more detail, I can tell them. But so like my earliest experience, I remember I was probably about 5 years old. I got up in the middle of the night to go get a drink. I was super thirsty. And as I'm walking down the hall, there was a guy sitting in the couch in my living room. And I thought my dad was out there. And I was like, I wonder why he's out there. And as I'm walking closer, he turns and looks at me. And then as I keep walking towards him, he just sort of faded away. And I was like super freaked out by it. And I'm 50 now. And I still remember that vividly. So that was the first thing I remember. And then some other kind of little things happened between then and then around, I guess it was like 96 or 97. I had broke up with this girl that I was living with. So I asked my parents if I could kind of crash at their place. So they let me crash in the living room, or they had like a second living room in this house where they were living and my little brother and my little sister were there. And so several nights I would wake up and it was like a shadow guy sitting in the recliner next to me. And so I'd freak out and I'd turn the light on and he would be gone. And then the last time I saw him, I woke up and the fucker was like hovering over my face. Like his face was right above my face and his face was glowing and it just freaked me out. And, when I was helping my parents move out of that house some years later, I asked my dad, you know, like, did you ever experience anything here like supernatural? And he started telling me all this shit. He didn't see like a specific shadow guy, but he said he believed the place was haunted because he'd be working in like the office or something, and he would see somebody walk by the door and he thought my mom was home, and he'd go look around the house and nobody was there. And he said that happened quite a bit. And then years later, it was many years later, actually, it was only like maybe a couple of years ago. My sister called me and, she was like, "Hey, did you ever see like a shadow guy in that house that we lived in when you were moved back in?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did." And she told me that her bedroom was at the end of the hall, and there was at the end of the hall, there was just a wall there. She said that she would see this shadow guy like walk out of that wall and walk down the hallway. And then down the hallway was the living room that I was sleeping in. So I feel like I got some confirmation on that. And then, there's some shit going on in this house. I saw some shit in the Pedro spot. I was sure that place was haunted. I was cleaning out this room because I used to live at the shop for many years. Like when I was building up machine, I lived in the back just to kind of, save money and go sort of all in on it. So I was upstairs and I was cleaning out this room, the room that I had been staying in, but it was now storage. And I saw a guy walk by the door, and this room is upstairs, and you can't walk upstairs without hearing, the stairs made a lot of noise. So if somebody had walked up the stairs, I would have certainly heard it. And so I walked out and I looked around and I didn't see anybody. And I was like, I know I just saw some ghost shit, because I always had a bad feeling there. And Adrian and Ricardo that were working there, they were also like kind of freaked out by the place. I think I remember Adrian at least once or twice. Adrian, if you're listening, confirm this with me, but at least once or twice he has to leave early when he was there by himself, because he was like, there's just something going on here. Like he was hearing shit. And so when I saw that guy walk by the door, I went downstairs and Adrian and Ricardo were down there. And I think Daniel was there too. And I was like, did anybody just go upstairs? And they were like, no, we've been down here the whole time. I'm like, I just saw somebody walk by the door, and everybody just looked at me like freaked out. I'll tell a couple more. Fuck it. Hopefully people find this interesting. So, in this house, there's some shit too. Like there's something weird in the corner of the garage. Like when we moved in, there was just this crucifix, and it's still there. And I was like, such an odd place for a crucifix. It was in the back corner of the garage on this like pegboard thing. And it kind of weirded me out. It was just like, why is this here? It just seemed like such a weird place to have a crucifix. And when I'm in the garage and I have like a pull-up rack back there. So every time I go out there at night to do pull-ups, and the pull-up rack is in the opposite corner of the garage as that spot with the crucifix, I just always feel like there's something behind me, something looking at me, like every time. And I just do my pull-ups as quick as possible, and then I come back in. And then, every set I go out there and I'm like, oh man, let's just knock these out, because like I just feel like something's behind me. And then a couple times I've actually seen things. There was one night where I woke up to the sound of my dog. She was, I don't know, if anybody has dogs, you can relate to this. Like when they kind of like dig into the couch and make like weird grumbling sounds, they kind of do some weird fucking, I don't know, they're trying to get energy out. I don't know what they're doing, but I heard her in the living room. This was like 3:00 in the morning. I heard her in the living room doing that. But as I'm looking towards the door, there's a little white dog sitting on the corner of my bed. And she's only a little white dog in the house. So I'm like, looking at this little white dog, and I'm like, well, how the fuck is T out there and she's sitting there? Like, it didn't make any sense. And then the white dog just drifted away. Like, the little white dog was sitting on the corner of the bed, and it was looking out the door, like towards where T was out in the living room. And so I was just like, that is really weird. And then another night, not too long ago, I woke up and I looked over and I saw something walk by our door. Well, not even walk by, it just sort of floated by. And I was like, why is Jessie up, you know? And I look over and she's laying there. And I'm like, well, if she's there, who the fuck was that? And then I realized it couldn't have been her. Even if she wasn't there, I'm like, it couldn't have been her, because the fucking thing was like, must have been 9 feet tall, because it was like above the door, like, drifting by the door. I'm like, what the fuck? So anyway, the whole point of all that is like, I'm open to this idea of, there's shit that we don't understand. And so maybe these things that are happening, in the middle of the night, maybe there's something to that. Maybe there's some kind of message or something like that. So Jessie had been suggesting that I go see this lady, and she's like this like spiritual healer type of fucking shaman or something, so like, and I believe in all that stuff. My skepticism lies in people, when people say they have all these abilities, I generally don't believe them. Not that I don't believe that it's possible, but I just kind of feel like a lot of people are full of shit. And a lot of times when people say that they have those abilities, they always have this certainty that I just don't think is possible, because if somebody were to question me and say all these things I just talked about, like, I'm not certain that it was a ghost. Like, I'm not certain what that is. I just know I saw some shit that I can't explain. I can't really talk about it with any kind of certainty. And so I'm open to these things. I'm just skeptical about humans telling me that they can do this shit. So anyway, I decided to just do it. And I'm like, it'll be interesting to see what she says, We just kind of had some regular talk, and she's just some weird shit, like putting her hands on my shoulder and my arm and like doing these weird motions with her hands and stuff. And I'm like, kind of whatever about it, like I kind of don't believe it. I kind of don't, what is it? I'm kind of in the middle. Like I'm not like, this is bullshit. And I'm also not like, this is really doing something. Like, I don't really know, but I thought it was something. And Jessie was like super interested in me doing it. She loves sending people to this lady because she wants to hear the stories of what the lady says, because she comes up with like a lot of this crazy shit for certain people. And so at the end of the session, she was like, well, do you have any questions for me? And like, everything was kind of like not super crazy. And Jessie was like, she was waiting out in the lobby for me. She actually wanted to come and sit in there so that she can hear all the stuff as soon as I came out. And so at the end of the session, I'm like, well, like, can you tell me anything crazy? Like any kind of weird, I don't know, past life shit or something? And she was like, oh, you're not ready for that. And I'm like, well, like, I just, Jessie's really excited to hear some like crazy shit. So like, what can I tell her? And she said that, she's like, well, why don't we all go out there and I'll tell her, we'll talk about it together. And so when we get out there, she was telling Jessie, like, he's sensitive and he can see things and all this kind of stuff. And Jessie already kind of felt that about me. And I mean, obviously I've seen things, but I don't really like to like say like I have these abilities or something, because I don't really know. I don't know about that stuff. Like, I don't really know. One of the things that Jessie was interested in is because when these things are being done, supposedly like something comes into the room with you, like a spiritual guide or some kind of shit like that. And so Jessie was really interested, like, did anything come into the room, like when Mike was there? And she said that like, I have several guides, but one of them was like this, what did she say? Like a Norse Viking or some shit like that, spirit guide or something along those lines, Okay. I'll get to like something a little bit more on the personal development tip. I think maybe I don't know if I'm over explaining, just, this is how it's going. So, So what I decided to do is just take that information and be like, okay, what if this stuff was true? What would I do with this? You know, so I started like looking into stuff, and I guess I can tell some other stuff because it relates somewhat. So when I was doing acupuncture, there was a couple times, the first time I ever did acupuncture, I saw it as an opportunity because like they put all the needles in you and then they just leave you in the room for like 30 minutes or something. So I'm like, this is a perfect opportunity to meditate because you can't move and you're in this kind of like different space and you're comfortable and all this stuff. So the first time I ever did acupuncture, I was like, all right, I'm going to try to get into this like real deep meditative state. And so while I was doing that, I had the craziest thing happen. It was like, you know, when you imagine things, you know, it's this sort of like blobby representation. It's not like, well, I don't know, maybe it's like that for you, but for me, it's never like you're not looking at the thing that you're imagining. You're kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like a dreamlike vision of it. And so I was doing that, and like I started seeing these like weird shapes and colors, which I didn't think was super abnormal. Like when you have your eyes closed for a long time, but you're awake, you know, you start seeing like weird kind of like blob things and shit. And then all of a sudden, clear as day, I was looking at that fucking, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a huge like statue in Chicago. I think it is. It's like a big chrome like blob or oval thing. I was like looking at that shit, like from a wide view, like I was kind of far away. And I saw like people walking around and it was just like totally clear. And so I'm looking at it and I'm like, this seems like I'm looking at this. Like I'm legitimately looking at this. And once I started kind of getting sort of excited, I'm like, I don't know, maybe there's some shit. Like, what am I like astral projecting, or I don't know. It was something that I've never experienced. As soon as I started really trying to look, it went away. And then it happened again. I was like floating above New York, looking at some buildings, and I was kind of floating around, but like it was clear. It wasn't like the same as how I imagined things. It was like I was really looking at these things. And then again, as soon as I really started to try to control it, it went away. So years later, I was doing acupuncture, and I was trying to decide what kind of like meditation I wanted to do when I was laying there. And I had this idea, because I did this one meditation that I learned a long time ago, where you imagine you're inhaling this like bright healing light, and it kind of goes through your body and kind of clears out all the negative or sickness or anything. And then when you exhale, it's this smoke. And so for the longest time, I think it was like several weeks, Jessie had this really bad pain in her shoulder. And I would rub the shoulder and try to work it out and everything, and it'd feel a little better, but it was like kind of nonstop. We were putting this like CBD shit on there, and it would kind of like sort of feel better, but it was never ending. And she doesn't really go to the doctor. So it was kind of like we were just doing the best we could. And so it was like 3 weeks. I think it was about 3 weeks or a month straight where it was just kind of no relief for her. So I was like, I don't know, fuck it, man. I'll try something. And so I imagine when I was breathing that light in, the light was actually going to her shoulder and kind of like clearing out whatever was causing that. And then I would exhale the black smoke, and I did that. And I kind of entered into this like deep meditative state, and I had another one of those visions, and it was this weird fucking, it just sort of flashed on, and it didn't see it for more than a few seconds, but it was like this demon face. Like, and I was looking at it clear as day, and I still remember exactly what it looked like. It was like this demon face with like these sort of patches of bright blue and bright red, like shapes on its face, like the coloring, and its mouth was like distorted. Like, you know, when they dig up like a dude that's been dead in the ice or something, their mouth is all like distorted and shit, like, or a mummy or something. It was like that. And then it went away, and I kind of just kept doing that thing. So when I got home, Jessie was just getting out of bed, and I was like, hey, how's your shoulder feel? And she's like, it's weird. It's like, it feels like perfect. And I was like, no pain at all. Like, nothing. She's like, no, it feels like I didn't even have a problem with my shoulder at all. And so I was like, that's fucking weird. And I told her about that shit. She said, oh, you were doing Reiki, remote Reiki. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know about all that, but it didn't make sense. Like, why, I don't know. Could have been coincidence, but I just thought it was kind of weird, So like, I'm kind of open to these ideas that like, maybe there is something that there's some shit that we don't understand. And if you look around the universe and all this stuff, like how the fuck is all this shit even happening? You know what I mean? We're this like tiny little speck in this huge, vast thing. Like there's so much shit we don't understand. So why couldn't I fix Jesse's shoulder from laying in a in a fucking table with needles sticking out of me? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's possible or not, but there's a lot of weird shit that we don't understand. So I'm open to this information. So back to what I was saying, like after I saw this spiritual healer lady, like I'm still kind of skeptical about whether or not that lady actually can do all the things that she said, or that she saw this fucking Viking spirit guide or whatever. But I decided, I was like, I'm just going to act as if it was true and see what can I do with that information, So I started reading about, like she said, like I'm more in tune with, because I told her about that Reiki story and I was like, I don't know. I after that happened, I started reading a book about Reiki and I was telling her, I was like, I just didn't believe it when I was reading it. I was like, this sounds kind of like bullshit to me. And she said, you're probably more tapped into, what you call it, like Celtic shamanism. So if I'm going to sort of approach this information as if it were true, I might as well look into it. So I started looking into that stuff. I listened to this audiobook and I'm starting to read another book just out of curiosity to see what that stuff's about. And so the night after the healing thing, I still didn't sleep very well. It was the same shit pretty much. But the whole day after, so I went and saw her in the morning, and then the whole day I was in a different state. Like, I don't know. It was kind of interesting. Like I felt like neutral, like an empty cup. I don't know how to explain it. It was just, I didn't really want to talk. My mind was not really doing anything. It was a really interesting state of mind for the whole day. And then that night I didn't really sleep. The next day I felt pretty much back to normal. And then that night when I went to sleep again, I woke up at like 3:00 in the morning, but this time I woke up and I was like in a cold sweat and I was kind of like panicking. What I was panicking about was the fact that I didn't feel like I was living up to the standards that I had in my mind, so 25 minutes later, I'm getting to the point. So in a few different areas, mainly like physical health and with my business. So with like physical health, what happens to me is like, I have this certain level of fitness that I want to be at. And I always just get right close to it. And then I sort of fall off track a little bit. So what happens is like, I do 75 hard, like kind of regularly. So I'll do 75 hard and I'll get close to where I want to get to. And then when I finish the program, I'll be like, start to kind of slip off into some not old habits, like way back habits, but, just kind of not working out as much as I think I should and not eating as healthy as I should. And I kind of slip into, I start to lose the progress that I gained, and I don't lose all of it. So, but I do lose some, and then I'll kind of freak out and I'll be like, man, I don't want to slip back into this. And then I'll do 75 hard again. And it's just this sort of cycle that I've been doing for years. And I never quite get to where I want to get to. And so a while back that was fine because my standards were lower. So I was living up to the standards that I had in my mind. But now my standards are higher. So if I don't achieve what I want to achieve, or if I start to slip off track, it kind of occupies a lot of my mind. It occupies a lot of thoughts. And then the same thing with business. Like I work all the time. I work probably 12 hours a day. I wake up, I do some of my personal development stuff, reading and drinking water and shit and exercise and that kind of stuff. And then I get to work and, I usually get to work around, 8:30 or 8 or I don't know. But I work like, roughly 12, 11, 10 hours, 10 to 12 hours a day. But if I really audit what I'm doing, I'm not really spending nearly enough time on the tasks that I'm uniquely qualified to do. So for example, like I'm making these files for the printing jobs, or I'm answering emails, or doing all these kind of like, tasks that I should be handing off to other people. And so a lot of my day is spent doing those kind of things. And so even though I'm working hard and I'm putting in most of my time into running this business and growing this business, I'm not spending as much time as I should on the things that actually move the needle in the business, that grow it and do all these kind of things. So with those two examples, those are two of the biggest examples of like, I'm not living within the standards that I have in my mind. So when I woke up in the middle of the night and I was sweating, that's what I realized. I was like, that's why all this is happening. Like, that's why I'm stressed. That's why I'm waking up in the middle of the night. It's because I have a standard and I'm not living up to it. So all that shit I was just talking about, if I'm looking at it through the lens of this like spirituality and shit like that, I'm like, well, maybe this fucking, like, let's say the spirit guide is real. Like that, let's say that's real. Maybe I'm waking up in the middle of the night because I don't know. I just feel weird even saying this, but let's just say that, let's just talk about this as if this shit is real. Not saying it isn't. I don't know. I just feel weird about it. If everything that people say, the veil's thinner between that time, what if I'm getting woke up in the middle of the night by this spirit guide and he's going like, look, fucker, you got to be doing what you say you're going to do. You got to live the life that you want to live, and you got to be in the physical shape that you want to be in. You got to do all the shit in your business that you're always saying you want to do. What if that's true? What if that's what's happening? Or you can look at it more scientific, or a neuroscience type of thing, like your subconscious mind keeps track of everything. So maybe it's my subconscious mind going like, look, man, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Even though you're working, you're staying busy all day. They say this in the sort of business personal development space. It's like there's a difference between being busy and being effective. And I think I'm somewhat effective, but I'm a lot more busy than I am effective. So I really need to bite the bullet and create systems and hand off all of this shit that I'm doing that's occupying a lot of my time, so I can do the stuff that really matters, And then at the same time, like if I'm going to do shit like 75 hard, that fucking 75 days is going to pass anyway. Why don't you just like go all out? Like, I feel like I do the shit. I do the workouts. I do the, outside, even if it's raining, I do all the shit, but I could do it with a lot more intensity, like I could be a lot more disciplined with my food, maybe I could like count the macronutrients and all these kind of things and actually get way better results. I mean, the time is going to pass anyway. And that's kind of the same that can be said for everything. Like whatever, like your whole life is going to pass by anyway. You might as well do the shit that's going to put you in the best position to be the best version of yourself that you can be. So now I'm in this position where I truly believe that that's why I'm waking up in the middle of the night. I don't know if it's like my spirit guide or if it's my subconscious or whatever it is. I'm just going to kind of like assume that information is right and really go all in and do all of these things that I say I'm going to do. So there's something I thought about. Jocko did a podcast. He did this like DEF reset, discipline equals freedom reset. It was like January 1st to January 31st. It's like similar to a 75 hard kind of thing. And he did some podcast episodes leading up to it. And I'm pretty sure it was one of these where he was talking about discipline. And he said something that stuck with me. And he said that everything that you want is on the other side of discipline. And that makes sense. You know, everything that I want personally is on the other side of discipline. Everything good in my life is because I've had the discipline to do the things, you know. I have the business that I have because I had the discipline to keep going, even though it's, you know, kind of a nightmare most of the time. It's just constant, nonstop shit. But at the same time, there's another level of discipline to where I could be really focused on, like, not procrastinating on the tasks that I know I have to do. Like, a lot of times they'll say, you know, the task that you've been putting off, that's the thing you're supposed to be doing. You're procrastinating. The thing that you're procrastinating and trying to avoid doing is probably the thing you should be doing. And I feel like that's exactly the case. A lot of the things I put off that I feel are important, those are the things I should be doing. And like this podcast is an example. Like, just today, I have this on my power list to record this episode. And in my mind, I was trying to get out of it. Cause like, as soon as I start thinking about an episode, I start worrying that, like, I'm going to lose my train of thought and that, like, the message isn't going to come out, or I'm not going to speak with confidence. Like, my mind just kind of goes into this bullshit, you know, and it just starts talking me out of doing this thing. But I know this is important. Like, it's important to me, and I get messages of people saying they love it and it helps them and all this kind of stuff. Like, if I have the opportunity to help somebody, like, that's a big deal, even if it's not even a lot of people. Like, I don't know how many people this helps, but I feel like it's important. And so anyway, when my brain was kind of like, maybe you should do this instead. Maybe you should edit this video. I started feeling that same stress feeling that I feel in the middle of the night. And I felt like that was confirmation of whatever it is that's telling me that I'm not living up to the standards I set for myself. And so I just came in here and recorded it. And this is 36 minutes long. I don't know. I hope all that ghost shit was interesting. A little bit off topic, but I hope it kind of led to, I don't know, the point. So what I've decided to do, and maybe this will be something that you can do too. I went and I wrote down everything that I feel like I need to do. Like, I never really had a set, I'm going to do these workouts on these days. I'm going to eat like this. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to plan all this shit out. I don't have it all planned out like I'm going to eat this at 2:00 or anything, but it's, you know, I'm going to eat less of this. I'm going to eat more of this. I'm going to try to eat about this many calories. Like, wrote it all down. And now it's just about implementing that discipline. And hopefully, if I revisit this topic in a month or 2 months, I'll be sleeping better because I was right. I think I was. I think that's what was going on. So that's all I got. I hope you're all doing well. Just a reminder, we have that Discord channel. If you got this far, then would love to have you in there. So send me a message on Instagram, bus166. You can message me on Twitter at bus166msk. You can email me, bus@machinestudio.com, or however you like. All right. We'll talk to you guys soon. All right.
Appreciate each and every one of you guys who are supporting the cause and continue to spread the love. And yeah, stay up.